After 6 years of perfect performance, my wife's uncle, the CEO, promoted his niece, who'd been here 3 months. I handed in my resignation with a smile. "Congrats to Hannah," I said. When he read it, he slammed his desk. "Is this a joke?" He started yelling when. I remember the exact weight of the air that Tuesday morning. It wasn't heavy, exactly. Not the kind of oppressive humidity that makes your shirt cling to your spine before you've even left the house. It was something else. Something thinner. Like the atmosphere had been siphoned out of the building overnight, leaving just enough oxygen to keep us functional, but not enough to let anyone breathe deeply. The conference room on the 7th floor had floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city, and normally I loved that view. Normally, I'd arrive early for these quarterly meetings just to watch the sun climb over the skyline, turning glass towers into columns of gold. But that morning, the light felt accusatory. It poured through those windows like a spotlight hunting for guilt. I was seated between Marcus from accounting and Jennifer from operations. We'd all received the same vague calendar invite, leadership announcement, mandatory attendance. No details, no agenda, just Robert Chin's name at the top as the organizer, and that clinical corporate phrase that always means something big is about to shift. Robert was my wife's uncle, had been the CEO of Chun & Associates for 12 years. I'd known him longer than that. Met him at a family barbecue when Sarah and I were still dating, back when I was a nervous 24-year-old trying to make a good impression on the relatives. He'd been kind then, warm even, asked me about my degree, my plans, told me there might be a place for someone with my drive at his company once I graduated. And there had been. 6 years ago, I'd walked through those glass doors downstairs with a briefcase I'd bought specifically for the occasion and a resume that Robert already had memorized. I'd earned my spot, interviewed with the entire senior team, presented a market analysis that Jennifer later told me was the most thorough thing she'd seen from an entry-level candidate. But I knew what people would think. What some of them did think, in whispers by the coffee station or in carefully neutral tones during performance reviews. He's only here because he married the CEO's niece. So I'd made damn sure that wasn't true. 6 years of arriving before anyone else and leaving after the lights in the hallway went automatic. 6 years of taking the projects no one wanted. The ones with impossible timelines and clients who thought consultant meant miracle worker. 6 years of turning those projects into case studies, into testimonials, into contracts that renewed themselves because the clients couldn't imagine working with anyone else. The Quinn account, the Mercer expansion, the entire Northeastern Territory restructure that people said would take 2 years. I'd done it in 11 months and brought in 40% more revenue than projected. I'd made senior consultant in 3 years. Got my own team in 4. By year 5, I was managing 3 departments and mentoring half the new hires. My performance reviews read like love letters. Robert himself had told me, just last quarter, that I was essential to the future of this company. And I'd believed him. If you've ever worked somewhere long enough to feel like you've earned your place, you know that belief. It's not arrogance. It's just the quiet certainty that comes from seeing your name on the wins list over and over. From watching your strategies get implemented. From having people seek you out for advice. I sat in that conference room with that certainty still intact, like a sweater I hadn't realized had been slowly unraveling. Robert walked in at 9 sharp, which was unusual. He normally arrived fashionably late to these things, a power move disguised as executive busyness. But today he was punctual, almost eager. Behind him walked 3 people, Linda from HR, Michael who served as CFO, and Hannah. Hannah was 26. She was Robert's niece, Sarah's cousin, technically, though they'd never been close. She joined the company 3 months ago with a degree in communications from a mid-tier state school and a resume that listed social media coordinator at a startup that had folded within a year. Robert had hired her anyway. Family, he'd said, and I nodded along because I understood that value, believed in it even. I'd been polite at the office, friendly at family gatherings. Hannah seemed nice enough, a little young, a little green, but enthusiastic. She'd shadowed me for her first 2 weeks, taking notes while I walked her through client management systems and reporting protocols. She'd thanked me afterward with genuine sweetness, told me I was so good at explaining things. I hadn't thought much about where she'd gone after that. The company was big enough that our paths rarely crossed. I assumed she was learning the ropes, figuring out her place. Now she stood beside Robert at the front of the room, wearing a navy blazer that looked brand new and a smile that seemed nervous but excited. "Thank you all for coming," Robert began, his voice carrying that practiced warmth that executives master over decades. "I know these all-hands meetings can disrupt your morning, so I'll keep this brief." He clicked the remote in his hand, and the screen behind him illuminated with the company logo, then transitioned to an organizational chart. As many of you know, we've been growing rapidly, 32% year over year, which puts us ahead of every projection we made when I took over as CEO. That growth means opportunities. New territories, new clients, new challenges that require fresh energy and visionary leadership. My stomach hadn't dropped yet, not even a flutter. "It also means," Robert continued, "that we need to evolve our leadership structure to match our ambitions. Which brings me to today's announcement." He clicked again. The org chart zoomed in on the executive tier. A new box appeared, right below Robert's name. Vice President of Strategic Development, Hannah Chun. The room went silent in that particular way that means everyone is processing the same shock simultaneously, but doesn't want to be the first to react. I stared at the screen. Vice President, Strategic Development. That was my division. Those were my territories. The Northeastern expansion, the Quinn account, the restructure. All of that fell under strategic development, and Hannah's name was in the box above mine. Hannah brings a fresh perspective that I believe will be invaluable as we move into our next phase, Robert was saying, his hand gesturing toward her like a game show host revealing a prize. She's got innovative ideas about how we can leverage digital channels, and her understanding of contemporary consumer behavior is exactly what we need. Hannah stepped forward, her smile broader now, more confident. "Thank you, Uncle Robert, Mr. Chun." She laughed, and a few people laughed with her, though it sounded forced. "I'm really excited to work with all of you. I know I have a lot to learn, and I'm looking forward to collaborating with our incredible team to take Chun and Associates to the next level." She was reading from note cards. I could see them trembling slightly in her hands. 3 months. She'd been here 3 months, and now she was my boss. I became aware of Jennifer's eyes on me, then Marcus's. A few other faces turned, quick glances that darted away as soon as I noticed them. I kept my expression neutral. Years of client-facing work had taught me how to control my face, how to smile through clauses that screwed us over and nod along during meetings where I wanted to flip the table. But inside, something was cracking. Not breaking, not yet. Just fracturing, like safety glass hit at the wrong angle. Holding together for now, but compromised. Robert was still talking. Something about transition plans and departmental meetings. I wasn't really listening anymore. I was doing math. 6 years times 50-plus hour weeks times sacrificed weekends and late-night calls with international clients and presentations I'd rehearsed until I could give them in my sleep. Versus 3 months. The meeting ended with applause, polite, corporate applause that sounded like nothing. Robert dismissed us with reminders to check our email for follow-up details, and people filed out in clusters, voices low and careful. I stayed seated. Jennifer paused by my chair. "You okay?" "Fine," I said. The word came out smooth, easy. "Just processing." She squeezed my shoulder, brief, sympathetic, and left. The room emptied until it was just me and the morning light that didn't feel golden anymore. It felt clinical, exposing. I pulled out my phone and opened the calculator app. 6 years, 72 months, divided by 3, 24. Hannah had been here for 1/24th of the time I had. I closed the calculator and opened my email instead. The follow-up from Robert was already there, time-stamped 9:47 a.m. Subject: exciting new chapter for strategic development. I didn't read it. I opened a blank document instead and started typing. The resignation letter took me 7 minutes to write. Not because I didn't know what to say, I knew exactly what to say. But I rewrote the second paragraph 3 times because I wanted the tone perfect. Not bitter, not angry, just professional and clean, the kind of letter that says everything by saying almost nothing. Dear Mr. Chun, please accept this letter as formal notification of my resignation from Chun and Associates, effective 2 weeks from today's date. I want to thank you for the opportunities I've had over the past 6 years. This company has been instrumental in my professional development, and I'm grateful for the trust you've placed in me. I wish you and the entire team continued success, and I'm particularly excited to see where Hannah takes strategic development under her leadership. Warm regards, Daniel Morrison. I read it through twice. The third paragraph was the masterpiece. Genuine-sounding congratulations that would seem gracious to anyone who didn't know better, but which Robert would understand was a knife wrapped in silk. I printed it on company letterhead, signed it with the fountain pen Sarah had given me for our 5th anniversary, and slipped it into a manila envelope. Then I walked down the hall to Robert's office. His assistant, Margaret, looked up with the tired smile of someone who'd already fielded 20 questions about the morning's announcement. Daniel, how can I help you? I need to see Robert. Just for a moment. She glanced at his schedule on her screen. He's got back-to-back meetings until 3. Can I schedule you for? It's urgent. Something in my voice must have registered because she picked up her phone and murmured into it. A pause. Then, go ahead. He's got 5 minutes. I knocked once and opened the door without waiting for an answer. Robert's office was corner suite, naturally. Same floor-to-ceiling windows, same view of the city, but from a higher angle. More territory. His desk was mahogany, the kind that cost more than my first car, and behind him hung a series of awards and framed photos. Robert shaking hands with the governor, Robert at a ribbon cutting, Robert with his arm around Sarah's father at some family reunion. He looked up from his laptop with that reflexive CEO smile, the one that says I'm giving you my attention, but I have somewhere more important to be. Daniel, come in, come in. I was hoping we'd get a chance to talk today. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. I know the announcement might have come as a surprise, but I think once you and Hannah sit down and discuss the vision. I didn't sit. I placed the envelope on his desk, centered it precisely between his keyboard and his coffee mug. Congrats to Hannah, I said. My voice was calm, pleasant even, the same tone I used with difficult clients, the kind that never let them hear frustration or doubt. Robert stopped mid-sentence. His smile faltered, then held, but in a different configuration, less warmth, more confusion. What's this? My resignation. Effective 2 weeks from today. I watched his face cycle through reactions. Surprise, disbelief, something that might have been concern or might have been calculation. He didn't open the envelope, just stared at it like it might be a prank. Daniel, let's not be hasty. His tone shifted into what I recognized as his negotiation voice, measured, reasonable, the vocal equivalent of a hand on your shoulder steering you back to common sense. I understand if you're feeling overlooked, but this isn't personal. It's strategic. We need different skills at the leadership level, and Hannah brings contemporary consumer behavior expertise. I finished. Digital channel leverage. You mentioned that in the meeting. Exactly. He leaned back, spreading his hands like he'd just proven a point. This doesn't diminish what you've accomplished. You're still essential too. I appreciate that. I kept my voice level, and I meant what I said. I'm excited to see where Hannah takes the department. He finally picked up the envelope, turned it over. His thumb traced the sealed flap, but he didn't open it yet. Sarah knows about this? Not yet. I wanted to give you notice first. Professional courtesy. Something flickered behind his eyes. Maybe respect. Maybe irritation that I'd boxed him in by being polite. He tore open the envelope then, pulled out the letter. I watched his eyes scan the lines, once quickly, then again more slowly. When he looked up, the negotiation voice was gone. Is this a joke? The question came out harder than I think he meant it to. Almost accusatory. No, sir. You're seriously walking away? After everything after 6 years, he caught himself, took a breath, and the CEO mask slipped back into place. But I'd seen the crack. Daniel, be reasonable. You're one of our top performers. You can't just. I can actually. 2 weeks' notice, as per my contract. He set the letter down with deliberate care, like he was afraid he might crumple it otherwise. What do you want? His voice was flat now. All business. A raise? A new title? I can make adjustments. We can create a position that. I don't want anything. I just wanted to give you proper notice. This is about Hannah. It wasn't a question. I smiled. Polite, neutral, the smile I'd perfected over 6 years of swallowing things I wanted to say. This is about what's best for my career. And I think it's time I explored other opportunities. Other opportunities. He repeated the phrase like he was testing it for hidden meaning. You have something lined up? Not yet. Then why? He stopped himself again, and this time when he spoke, his voice had an edge that made me think of family dinners, of Sarah laughing at her uncle's jokes, of all the times I'd sat at his table and pretended not to notice when he talked about business in front of everyone except me. "You're making a mistake," he said, walking out over pride. "That's what this is." I didn't respond. He stood up then, came around the desk. For a moment I thought he might try to physically block my exit, but he just stood there, arms crossed, jaw tight. "I built this company," he said quietly. "I know what it needs to survive. And sometimes that means making decisions that feel unfair to people who've been here longer. But this isn't a seniority competition. It's about vision," I said. "Fresh perspective. You've mentioned that." His jaw clenched. 2 weeks, I continued. "I'll have transition documents ready for whoever's taking over my accounts. Full briefings on active projects. I'll make sure nothing falls through the cracks. Daniel, is there anything else you need right now? Because Margaret mentioned you have back-to-back meetings." We stood there in his corner office with the city spreading out behind him like a kingdom he ruled, and for the first time in 6 years, I saw him clearly. Not as Sarah's successful uncle, not as the CEO who'd given me a chance, just as a man who'd chosen his blood over my work and expected me to smile about it. He picked up the letter again, read it a third time. When he looked up, his expression was unreadable. "You're really doing this?" "Yes, sir." He walked back to his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a folder. Slid it across to me. "Your annual review was scheduled for next month. I was going to give you this then." He tapped the folder. 40% raise. Equity options. A path to VP within 18 months. I didn't touch the folder. "Was," I said. "Was," he agreed. "But it could still be is. If you reconsider. I appreciate the offer." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now." We looked at each other across his expensive desk, across 6 years of history and family dinners, and all the careful navigation I'd done to earn my place without it looking like it was handed to me. "Sarah's going to be upset," he said finally. "Probably. Your call, then." He sat down, pulled his laptop closer, a dismissal. 2 weeks. I'll have HR process your exit paperwork." I turned to go. "Daniel." I stopped at the door. "You're making a mistake," he said again. But this time it sounded different. Less like a warning and more like a threat. I nodded once and left. Margaret was staring at her computer screen with intense focus when I passed her desk, the kind of focus that means she'd heard every word through the door and was pretending she hadn't. I didn't blame her. The elevator ride down to my floor felt longer than usual. I watched the numbers descend, 7, 6, 5, and tried to figure out how I felt. Angry? Yes, but it was a cold anger, the kind that sits in your chest like a stone and doesn't give you the satisfaction of heat or adrenaline. Just wait. Betrayed? Definitely. Though I wasn't sure I had the right to that feeling. Robert hadn't promised me anything. There was no contract that said merit mattered more than blood. The doors opened on 3. My floor. My team's floor. Hannah's floor now, I supposed. I walked past the cubicles, heads down, everyone suddenly very focused on their screens. And into my office. It was modest by executive standards, a window that faced the parking lot instead of the skyline, a desk that had belonged to someone else before me, 2 chairs for visitors that didn't match. But I'd earned it. Every square foot. I closed the door and sat down, pulled out my phone, stared at Sarah's name in my contacts. We'd been married for 4 years, together for 8. Met in college at a volunteer event, one of those awkward campus sustainability things where everyone wore name tags and tried to look passionate about composting. She'd been funny about it, making quiet jokes that only I seemed to hear, and by the end of the day, I'd asked for her number. I didn't find out about Robert until our 5th date. She'd mentioned her uncle owned a consulting firm downtown, said it casually like it wasn't important, and I'd nodded along. It wasn't until months later, when she invited me to a family barbecue, and I saw the house, the actual estate with the circular driveway and the catering staff, that I understood what consulting firm meant in her family's vocabulary. Robert had been welcoming that day, asked about my studies, my goals. When I mentioned I was majoring in business, he'd said, "Well, maybe you'll work for me someday." He'd meant it as a joke. I'd taken it as a challenge. Sarah had always been careful about that boundary. Never asked me about work, never used her connection to him to request favors or influence. She'd actually been the one to suggest I interview elsewhere after graduation. Said she didn't want me to feel obligated or for anyone to question how I got my position. but I wanted to prove I could do it. Could earn my way in her uncle's company without anyone being able to say I'd coasted on family ties. And I had. And it hadn't mattered. I called her number. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright with the kind of good mood that meant her workday was going well. Hey, what's up? I wasn't expecting to hear from you until lunch. Are you busy? A pause. Her tone shifted, not worried yet, but aware. No, I've got a few minutes. Everything okay? I resigned. Silence. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of processing. I could almost hear her brain reordering information, trying to make my words fit into a framework that made sense. You what? This morning, I handed in my resignation to Robert. Daniel. Her voice was careful now. What happened? Hannah got promoted to VP of Strategic Development. Another silence, shorter this time. Oh, just that. Oh, like she'd known this was coming and hadn't told me. Did you know? I asked. About the promotion? No. I mean, Uncle Robert mentioned he was planning to bring Hannah into a leadership role, but he didn't say when or. She stopped. Wait, VP? Of your department? Yes. That's. She trailed off. Daniel, that's a big jump for her. 3 months to vice president. Very impressive. You're angry. I'm realistic. Don't do that. Her voice got sharper. Don't go cold on me. Talk to me. I leaned back in my chair, looked out my parking lot window at rows of cars baking in the mid-morning sun. I've been there 6 years, I said quietly. I've brought in millions in revenue, built 3 departments, mentored half the staff. And her name is the one that goes in the box above mine. Did Uncle Robert give you a reason? Fresh perspective, contemporary consumer behavior expertise, digital channels. But that's, she caught herself. That's what? I prompted. Nothing. Sarah. She sighed, and I heard movement on her end, probably stepping into a hallway or conference room where she could talk more freely. Her office had thin walls. It's not fair, she said finally. You're right. It's not fair, and I'm sorry. But Daniel resigning? That's so extreme. Did you try to talk to him? Negotiate. He offered me a raise. Equity. A path to VP in 18 months. So he values you. He wants you to stay. After promoting his niece over me. Yes, he wants me to stay in second place. It's not about place. It's about. Sarah. I kept my voice gentle, but firm. It's exactly about place. More silence. Heavier this time. What do you want me to say? She asked. That my uncle's an asshole? That he should have given you the position? Because you're right, he should have. But he didn't. And walking away isn't going to change that. It's just going to make everything awkward. Awkward, I repeated. You know what I mean. Family dinners, holidays. This is going to create tension between you and him. And that means tension between you and me. I finished. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I heard her breathe out slowly, the way she did when she was trying not to say something she'd regret. I love you, she said. You know I do. And I support whatever decision you make. But I think you should sleep on this. 2 weeks is a long time. You don't have to go through with it. You could talk to Uncle Robert again, figure out a different arrangement. I'm going through with it. Daniel, I'm not asking for permission, Sarah. I'm just letting you know. The words came out harsher than I intended. I heard her sharp inhale, the kind that meant I'd hurt her. Okay, she said. Her voice had gone distant. Professional. Okay, then I guess you've made up your mind. I have. Then there's nothing left to discuss. Sarah, I need to get back to work. We'll talk tonight. She hung up before I could respond. I set my phone down and stared at it, waiting to feel guilty or regretful or something other than the cold certainty that I'd done the right thing. Nothing came. Just the weight in my chest, heavier now. The rest of the day moved in strange time. Hours that stretched and compressed unpredictably, like the building's clock had developed a stutter. Word spread fast. By lunch, half the floor knew I'd resigned. By 2 p.m., the entire company had heard. People reacted in clusters. Some looked sympathetic, others carefully neutral, a few openly shocked. Jennifer stopped by my office around 3 with coffee I hadn't asked for. So, she said, sitting in one of my mismatched chairs, you're really leaving. Apparently, that's the rumor. It's not a rumor if it's true. She sipped her own coffee, watching me over the rim. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you have a plan? I almost laughed. That's the question everyone wants answered. Because it's the important one. I'll figure it out. She set her cup down. Daniel, I've worked with you for 4 years. You don't do anything without a plan. You probably have backup plans for your backup plans. So either you're lying to me, or you're lying to yourself. I met her eyes. She wasn't wrong. I'd always been methodical, strategic. The kind of person who mapped decisions like chess moves, 3 plays ahead. But this wasn't chess. This was me finally admitting that the board was rigged. Maybe I don't have a plan this time, I said. Maybe I'm just done. Done working? Done with consulting? Or done swallowing shit? Yes. She nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something she already suspected. For what it's worth, she said, standing to go, I think you're right. Not about leaving. I think that's maybe impulsive. But about the rest of it. What happened today was fucked up. She paused at the door. But it's also Robert's company. And Hannah's his family. And you married into that family, but you're not blood. I know. Do you? She tilted her head. Because you've spent 6 years acting like merit matters more than bloodline. And maybe it should. But at Chun and Associates, it doesn't. It never has. She left before I could respond. I sat there turning her words over, looking for the flaw in her logic. I couldn't find one. The 2-week countdown started the next morning. HR sent me an email outlining my exit process, return of company property, final paycheck details, COBRA insurance options. Margaret scheduled my exit interview for day 13. Someone from IT showed up to discuss data transfer protocols. It all felt very procedural, very clean. Robert didn't speak to me again. I'd see him sometimes in the hallway or in the elevator, and he'd nod politely, the way you acknowledge a stranger. No warmth, no anger. Just the cool neutrality of someone who'd already written you out of the story. Hannah, on the other hand, kept trying to talk to me. She'd stop by my office with questions disguised as collaboration. I was hoping to get your thoughts on the Quinn account's renewal strategy. Or, do you have time to walk me through the Northeastern Territories project? I was polite, professional, gave her exactly what she asked for and nothing more. By day 5, she stopped coming by. By day 7, I had all my transition documents finished, 42 pages of institutional knowledge, client preferences, project timelines, and strategic recommendations. I sent them to her email with a brief note. Everything you'll need to maintain continuity. She responded in 30 seconds. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all your help. If you ever want to grab coffee and talk about opportunities, I know my uncle would love to find a way to keep you involved. I archived the email without responding. Sarah and I weren't fighting, exactly. We were existing in parallel, sharing a bed and a kitchen, and sometimes conversations about what to have for dinner, but not really talking. Not about Robert, or Hannah, or what I was planning to do after my last day. She'd stopped asking. I'd stopped offering. The fault line between us wasn't a chasm yet, but I could feel it widening with every careful silence. On day 9, Marcus from accounting invited me to lunch. We went to the sandwich shop 2 blocks away, sat at a table by the window. So, he said, unwrapping his turkey club, everyone's taking bets. On what? On whether you'll actually go through with it. Or if Robert will make you an offer you can't refuse on day 14. Tell them to bet on the first option. He grinned. I already did. Put $20 down. He took a bite, chewed thoughtfully. Can I ask you something, though? Everyone seems to want to ask me things this week. Why didn't you fight? I looked up from my sandwich. What? For the promotion. Why didn't you fight for it? Go to Robert before the announcement. Make your case. Hell, threaten to walk if you had to. Anything other than just accepting it. I set my food down. I shouldn't have to fight for recognition I've already earned. Maybe not. But that's not how the world works. Then maybe the world's the problem. Marcus studied me with something that looked like pity. You're a good guy, Daniel. Smart, hardworking, all that. But you've been operating under the assumption that merit is enough. That if you just do excellent work, people will notice and reward you. They should. Sure, they should. But they don't. And the people who succeed aren't the ones with the best work. They're the ones who know how to position themselves. How to play politics. How to make themselves indispensable in ways that go beyond the spreadsheets. That sounds exhausting. It is. But it works. I picked at the edge of my sandwich, not really hungry anymore. I did make myself indispensable, I said quietly. 6 years of indispensable. And it didn't matter because I wasn't family. No, Marcus agreed. You weren't. We finished lunch in relative silence. And when we walked back to the office, I felt the weight in my chest settle deeper. Day 14 arrived like an ending that had been marked on the calendar for longer than 2 weeks. Like something inevitable, written in the architecture of the building itself. I came in early, before the sun had burned through the morning haze. Packed my office in boxes that HR had left outside my door the night before. Framed certifications, the picture of Sarah and me from our honeymoon. The coffee mug that said world's okayest consultant that Jennifer had given me as a joke 3 years ago. Personal effects, they called it. As if 6 years could fit in 3 cardboard boxes. I was sealing the last one when someone knocked. Robert. He stood in my doorway in a suit that probably cost what I made in a month, holding a folder that looked familiar. "Morning," he said. "Morning." He stepped inside, closed the door behind him. We stood there in my nearly empty office, surrounded by the evidence of my departure. "Final exit interview is at 2, he said. Margaret confirmed. "I know. And you've submitted all your transition materials." "Yes." He nodded, looked around at the boxes, the bare walls where my certifications had hung. "Last chance," he said. "I can have HR process a counteroffer by end of day. Keep you on, different title, more money. We can make this work." "Why?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. "What do you mean, why?" "Because you're a valuable employee. Because walking away doesn't benefit either of us." "No." "Why now? Why make the offer on my last day instead of 2 weeks ago when it might have mattered?" He set the folder on my empty desk. "Because I didn't think you'd actually leave." I almost laughed. "You thought I was bluffing. I thought you were smart enough to see past your ego." "My ego?" "Yes." He said it flatly, like it was obvious. "You're angry because you didn't get what you wanted. But that's business, Daniel. Sometimes other factors come into play, factors that have nothing to do with your performance and everything to do with what the company needs at a given moment." And the company needed Hannah. The company needed diversification in leadership. Fresh blood. Someone who isn't. He stopped himself, but not fast enough. "Someone who isn't what?" I asked softly. He adjusted his tie. "This isn't personal." "Of course not. Promoting your niece with 3 months of experience over an employee with 6 years of documented excellence. That's just business. She has potential. So do I." "Yes." But her potential comes without the complication of being married to my other niece. Without the awkwardness of what happens at family dinners when business decisions have to be made. Without the risk that people might think I earned it. I finished. He went still. "That's it, isn't it?" I continued. "You didn't promote me because no matter what I accomplished, people would always assume I got it through Sarah. Through you. So you gave it to Hannah instead, because at least she's blood. At least no one can say she slept her way into the family. That's not. Which is ironic, because now everyone's going to say the same thing about her that they said about me. That she didn't earn it. That it was nepotism. Except she actually didn't earn it, and I actually did, so at least in her case they'll be right." Robert's jaw worked like he was grinding his teeth. "You're making a mistake," he said for the 3rd time in 2 weeks. "You keep saying that. Because it's true. You think you're taking some principled stand. But all you're doing is torpedoing your career over hurt feelings." "Maybe." I picked up the folder he'd set down, opened it. The same offer as before, 40% raise, equity, VP path. Or maybe I'm just finally admitting that no amount of work will ever be enough in a system designed to value bloodlines over contribution. I held the folder out to him. He didn't take it. "Keep it," he said. "Read it again. If you change your mind in the next," he checked his watch. 4 hours, let me know." He left without waiting for a response. I looked down at the offer. The numbers were genuinely generous. Life-changing money, by most standards. But it came with a condition that wasn't written anywhere in the document. Stay in your place. I dropped the folder in the recycling bin. The exit interview was exactly as tedious as I expected. Margaret from HR, different Margaret than Robert's assistant, sat across from me with a tablet and a sympathetic smile that felt rehearsed. "So," she said, tapping through her digital forms. "Let's start with the basics. Primary reason for departure. Career advancement opportunities." She typed that in. "And would you say your experience at Chun & Associates was positive overall?" "Very professional." "Did you feel supported by your direct supervisor?" "Yes." "Did you experience any workplace issues that contributed to your decision to resign? Harassment, discrimination, hostile work environment?" No. She looked up at that, like she was trying to read whether I was lying. I kept my face neutral. Compensation concerns? No. Work-life balance? No. So just general career advancement? Exactly. She made a note. Probably that I was being unusually terse, which I was. But exit interviews were theater. They weren't actually interested in why you were leaving. They were interested in mitigating liability. Well, Margaret said, setting down her tablet. Off the record, I'm sorry to see you go. You've been an asset to the team. Thank you. Will you keep in touch? Probably not. She blinked. Oh, okay then. I signed the digital form that said I'd returned all company property, that I understood my benefits termination date, that I wouldn't disparage Chun and Associates in any public forum. I didn't mention that I also wouldn't recommend it. That's everything, Margaret said. Your final paycheck will be direct deposited on the usual schedule, and you'll receive COBRA information in the mail. Do you have any questions? No. Then I guess this is goodbye. She stood, extended her hand. Best of luck in your next role. I shook it. Her grip was firm but brief, like she wanted this over as much as I did. I walked out of the HR office at 3:17 p.m. My boxes were already gone. Building services had taken them down to my car during the interview. All that was left was to ride the elevator down to the parking garage and drive away. I should have felt something. Relief, maybe. Or vindication. Or even regret. But as I walked through the lobby for the last time, passing the reception desk where I'd checked in every morning for 6 years, I felt nothing except that same cold weight. The parking garage was dim and quiet. My car was where I'd left it that morning, and sitting on the hood were my 3 boxes, stacked neatly. Jennifer was leaning against the driver's side door. Thought you might want to send off, she said. That's not necessary. I know. I'm doing it anyway. I unlocked the car and started loading boxes into the back seat. Where will you go? She asked. Home. I mean after. Job-wise. I don't know yet. Competitors will snatch you up in a heartbeat. You know that, right? Your reputation in the industry is solid. Maybe. Not maybe. Definitely. She pulled a business card from her pocket, held it out. This is my personal cell, not company line. If you end up somewhere good and they're hiring, call me. I took the card. You thinking of leaving too? Let's just say that watching someone with 3 months of experience become my boss has been illuminating. I almost smiled. Take care of yourself, Daniel. You too. She pushed off from the car, gave me a small wave, and headed toward the elevator. I got in, started the engine, and sat there for a moment looking up at the building, 7 stories of glass and steel that had been the center of my professional life for 6 years. Then I put the car in reverse and left. Sarah was already home when I got there, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop and a glass of wine. She looked up when I walked in, and her expression did something complicated, relief and concern and resignation all at once. So, she said, it's official. It's official. I set my keys on the counter, my bag on the floor. How are you feeling? I don't know yet. She closed her laptop. Daniel, talk to me. About what? About what's next. About what this means. About. She gestured vaguely at the space between us. About us. Us. You've been different these past 2 weeks. Distant. And I get it. You're angry. You're processing. But it feels like you're pulling away from me, and I don't know how to. Her voice caught. I sat down across from her. I'm not pulling away. It feels like you are. I just needed to do this on my own terms. Without. I stopped, trying to find the right words. Without your family's influence. My family. She said it like it hurt. Robert's my uncle, not my keeper. What he did has nothing to do with me. Doesn't it? She stared at me. What's that supposed to mean? You asked me to think about your relationship with him. About how this would affect family dinners. You wanted me to stay and eat shit to keep things comfortable. I wanted you to think before making a decision that affects both of us. It is both of us, I agreed. Because your loyalty is split. And I understand that, he's family. But so am I, Sarah. And when it came down to it, you asked me to tolerate being treated like I didn't matter. That's not fair. Maybe not. But it's true. She picked up her wine glass, drank, set it down harder than necessary. So what now, she asked. You've made your statement. You've left. What are you going to do? Find something else. Where? I don't know yet. When? I don't know. Do you have any interviews lined up? Any leads? Or did you just burn a bridge with no plan because your ego got bruised? My ego got bruised. I repeated. That's really what you think this is about. I think you made an emotional decision instead of a strategic one. Strategic would have been staying, taking Robert's counteroffer, smiling while Hannah, who learned the job from me, stood above me on the org chart. Strategic would have been playing the long game, building alliances, waiting for the right moment instead of having self-respect. She flinched. We sat in silence. I don't want to fight, she said finally. I just want to understand. Then understand this. I spent 6 years proving I belonged. 6 years of being better than good enough, and it didn't matter. And I'm not doing it anymore. So you're giving up? No. I'm changing the game. To what? I don't know yet. She laughed, sharp, humorless. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. She stood up, took her wine glass to the sink. I'm going to bed, she said. Wake me up when you figure out what you actually want. She left the kitchen. I sat at the table alone, listening to her footsteps on the stairs, the bedroom door closing. The weight in my chest hadn't gotten lighter, but it had shifted into something that felt less like a stone and more like potential energy. 3 days after my last day at Chun & Associates, my phone rang at 7:42 a.m. Unknown number. Local area code. I almost didn't answer. Assumed it was spam or a recruiter who'd scraped my LinkedIn. But something made me pick up. Hello? Daniel Morrison? A woman's voice, professional but warm. Speaking. My name is Patricia Huang. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Meridian Consulting Group. Do you have a few minutes to talk? I sat up straighter on the couch, where I'd been scrolling through job boards without much enthusiasm. Sure. Great. I'll get right to it. We've been tracking your work at Chun & Associates for the past year. Specifically, your handling of the Quinn account and the Northeastern expansion. Very impressive. Thank you. We're expanding our West Coast operations and looking for someone to head up a new strategic markets division. It's a VP-level position, and based on what we've seen, you'd be a strong fit. She paused. I understand you recently left Chun & Associates. May I ask what prompted that decision? I'd prepared for this question, practiced the diplomatic version, but what came out was, they promoted someone with 3 months of experience to run my division because she was the CEO's niece. Silence on the other end. Then, well, that's refreshingly honest. Should I have been more diplomatic? No. I could hear the smile in her voice. I appreciate directness. And for what it's worth, their loss is potentially our gain. Would you be interested in meeting to discuss the role? Very. Excellent. How's next Tuesday at 2? We can meet at our downtown office. Or if you prefer somewhere more casual. Downtown is fine. Perfect. I'll have my assistant send over the details and some preliminary information about the position. Looking forward to meeting you, Daniel. Thank you. Me too. She hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, replaying the conversation. Then I called Sarah. She answered on the 4th ring, sounding distracted. Hey, what's up? I have an interview. A pause. Already. Meridian Consulting Group. COO called directly. Meridian? Wait, they're one of the top 3 firms in the region. How did they even know you were available? She said they've been tracking my work. She stopped. That's really good, Daniel. Yeah. When's the interview? Tuesday. Okay, that's great. Really great. Her voice had warmed, the tension from our last conversation easing. I'm proud of you. Don't be proud yet. It's just an interview. Still, this is good. We talked for a few more minutes about logistics, what I should wear, what questions to prepare for. By the end of the call, things felt almost normal between us. Almost. Tuesday arrived clear and cold, the kind of morning where the air felt sharp enough to cut. I wore my best suit, the charcoal one Sarah had insisted I buy for client presentations, Italian wool that I'd only worn a handful of times because it felt too nice for normal office days. Meridian's offices were in the financial district, occupying floors 14 through 17 of a building with enough glass and chrome to look like a piece of modern art. The lobby alone was more impressive than Chun & Associates' entire suite. Patricia Huang met me in the reception area herself. A tall woman in her 50s with silver streaking through her black hair and the kind of presence that suggested she didn't need a business card to announce authority. Daniel, thanks for coming. Her handshake was firm. Let's talk in my office. We rode the elevator to 17. Her office had views that made Robert's corner suite look quaint. Panoramic city, Mountains in the distance, clouds close enough to feel architectural. Coffee. Water, she offered. Water's fine. She poured 2 glasses from a pitcher on her desk, handed me one, and sat. So, she said, let's talk about what we're building. For the next hour, she outlined Meridian's expansion plans. They were growing aggressively, opening new offices, targeting Fortune 500 clients, building specialized divisions for emerging markets. The Strategic Markets VP role would oversee West Coast operations, manage a team of 20-plus consultants, and report directly to her. It was everything I'd wanted at Chun & Associates. What's your timeline for filling the role? I asked. Ideally within the month. We're interviewing a few candidates, but between you and me, you're the front runner. Can I ask why? She leaned back. Because we did our homework. Talked to some of your former clients. Off the record, of course. They all said the same thing. You're brilliant at strategy, excellent with people, and you deliver. Those are rare qualities at the senior level. I appreciate that. I also heard about the circumstances around your departure. She held up a hand before I could respond. Not from gossip, from a mutual contact who knows both you and Robert Chin. They suggested that family politics played a role in your decision to leave. I kept my expression neutral. That's accurate. Good. Because here's the thing, Daniel, Meridian operates on merit. Period. No nepotism, no family favors. You're promoted based on results and leadership capability. That's written into our founding charter and reinforced at every level. That sounds ideal. It is. But it also means we have high expectations. This isn't a place where you can coast on reputation. You'd be building something from scratch, and it would take everything you have. I'm ready for that. She studied me. Why? Why am I ready? Why do you want this? Not just the job, the work. What drives you? I thought about the past 2 weeks. The weight in my chest. The conversations with Sarah. The boxes I'd carried out of that parking garage. I want to prove that doing excellent work matters, I said finally. That it's enough. And I want to do it somewhere that agrees. Patricia smiled. Then let's talk about compensation. She made me an offer on the spot. Not just competitive, transformative. Base salary 50% higher than what I'd made at Chun & Associates. Equity that vested over 4 years. Annual bonuses tied to division performance. A team I could build myself. And the title I'd earned, Vice President, Strategic Markets. I'd like your answer by Friday, Patricia said as we shook hands at the end of the meeting. No pressure, but I'm hoping it's yes. I walked out of that building into the cold afternoon feeling like I'd been holding my breath for 2 weeks and had finally exhaled. I called Sarah before I even made it to my car. They offered me the job. She screamed. Actually screamed, loud enough that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Daniel, oh my God, are you serious? Very serious. VP? Title and everything. Title and everything. How much are they? Wait, never mind. You can tell me when you get home. Oh my God, we need to celebrate. I'm leaving work early. I'll get champagne. The expensive kind. I could hear her smiling through the phone. I haven't accepted yet, I reminded her. But you're going to, right? I looked up at the building behind me, 17 floors of glass and potential. Yeah, I said. I think I am. I accepted Meridian's offer on Thursday, 1 day ahead of Patricia's Friday deadline. Signed the contract in Patricia's office with the city spread out behind us like a promise. And when she shook my hand afterward, she said, welcome to the team. Now let's get to work. My start date was 3 weeks out. Enough time for them to finalize office space and for me to decompress from the past month. Sarah had been happier than I'd seen her in years, walking around the house with champagne bubbles and plans for how we'd celebrate once I officially started. You did it, she kept saying. You really did it. And I had. But the weight in my chest hadn't disappeared. It had just changed shape again. Because 2 days after I signed with Meridian, my phone rang with another unknown number. This time, I recognized the voice immediately. Daniel, it's Michael Chong, from Chun & Associates. Michael, the CFO. We'd worked together on several major accounts, had a cordial professional relationship. Michael, hi, I heard about Meridian. Congratulations. Thank you. Listen, I don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to give you a heads up. Things are not good here. I stepped out onto our back patio, away from where Sarah was working in the dining room. What do you mean? The Quinn account is falling apart. They asked for you specifically for their renewal meeting, And when Hannah showed up instead, they weren't happy. 3 days ago, they pulled their contract. I went still. Quinn pulled their contract. Completely. They're going with Harmon Associates instead. Quinn had been worth $2.3 million annually. Stable, loyal, expanding. I'd built that relationship from a cold call 5 years ago into one of the company's anchor accounts. What about Northeastern expansion? Stalled. 2 clients have terminated early. One's threatening legal action over project mismanagement. Jesus. It gets worse. Robert's panicking. He called an emergency board meeting yesterday, and the board is asking hard questions about why we promoted someone with no experience to run our most profitable division, and why we let you walk. He made both those decisions. I know. We all know. But Michael's side. He's spinning it. Saying you left out of pride. That you weren't a team player. That the problems are because you didn't leave adequate transition documentation. I almost laughed. I left 42 pages of documentation. Yeah, well, Hannah says it wasn't enough. And Robert's backing her version. The weight in my chest turned hot. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you deserved better than what happened. And because I thought you should know that karma works fast. What's going to happen to the company? Honestly, I don't know. If we lose another 2 or 3 major accounts, we'll have to do layoffs. Maybe shut down the strategic development division entirely and restructure. And Hannah, still VP, still Robert's niece. Though between you and me, I don't think she'll last 6 months. This job's too big for her, and she knows it. We talked for a few more minutes. Logistics, gossip, the general temperature of morale, and then Michael had to go. I stood on the patio looking at our small backyard, processing. Quinn had left. Northeastern was failing. The work I'd done for 6 years was unraveling in less than a month because the person they'd put in charge didn't have the experience or relationships to hold it together. And Robert was blaming me. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. Sarah found me outside an hour later. You okay? You've been out here a while. Michael called. Michael from Her expression shifted. What did he want? I told her everything. Quinn, Northeastern, the board meeting, Robert's narrative. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she sat down on the patio chair beside me. Wow, she said finally. Yeah. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm not. You're not. I looked at her. They made their choice, and now they're dealing with the consequences. But Uncle Robert's blaming you. Let him. The people who matter know the truth. She was quiet for a moment. Then, are you going to say anything? Defend yourself? No. Why not? Because I don't need to. I leaned back, closed my eyes against the afternoon sun. I have a new job, a better title, better pay, and I didn't have to compromise myself to get it. So you're just letting it go? I'm moving forward. She studied me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Pride, maybe, mixed with something that looked like relief. I'm glad, she said. I know these past few weeks have been hard. On both of us. But I feel like we're finally in a better place. We are. She reached over and took my hand. I'm proud of you, you know. For walking away. For finding something better. For not letting this break you. I squeezed her hand back. But even as I sat there with my wife in our quiet backyard, I felt the weight shift again. Because this wasn't over. Not yet. My first day at Meridian was a Monday in early December. I wore the same charcoal suit, carried a new leather portfolio Sarah had given me as a congratulations gift, and arrived at 7:30 a.m. to an office that already felt more like home than Chun and Associates ever had. Patricia met me in the lobby with coffee and a smile. Ready to build something? Absolutely. She walked me through the floor, introduced me to department heads, showed me my office, corner suite, naturally, but earned this time, and outlined my first week's agenda. We've got 3 major client pitches scheduled for this quarter, she said, pulling up a presentation on her tablet. All Fortune 500 companies, all looking for exactly the kind of strategic consulting you specialized in. I want you leading those pitches. No pressure. She grinned. You wouldn't be here if you couldn't handle pressure. By noon, I had a team of 12 consultants assigned to my division, a project pipeline that would keep us busy for 6 months, and a clear mandate. Deliver results. It felt like oxygen after drowning. I worked late that first day, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Because for the first time in weeks, I was excited about the work instead of grinding through obligation. Sarah called at 8 to ask when I'd be home. Soon. Just finishing up some planning. How was it? Good. Really good. I'm glad. She sounded genuinely happy. Don't stay too late, okay? We should celebrate. Deal. I hung up and looked around my new office. Windows facing the city, desk that was actually mine from day one, walls blank and waiting for whatever I wanted to put there. I thought about Robert's office, about the org chart with Hannah's name above mine, and I smiled. 3 weeks into my tenure at Meridian, Patricia called me into her office. Close the door, she said. I did and sat. She looked serious, not angry, but focused in a way that meant something important was coming. I just got off the phone with Quinn Industries, she said. Quinn, my stomach did something complicated. They're looking for a new consulting partner, Patricia continued. Apparently, Chun and Associates mismanaged their renewal to the point where they terminated the contract. And they asked, specifically, if we had you on staff. They asked for me by name? By name. Said you were the only consultant who'd ever actually understood their needs. She leaned forward. I'd like you to handle the pitch. If we land them, it would be a massive coup, both for the division and for you personally. I sat there processing. Quinn had been mine for 5 years. I knew their CEO, their procurement team, their strategic priorities. I knew which contracts mattered and which were just bureaucratic checkbox exercises. I knew how to talk to them. And they'd left Chun and Associates because Hannah didn't. When's the pitch? I asked. 2 weeks. They're meeting with 3 firms, us, Harmon Associates, and one other. But they made it clear they're hoping we can offer them what Chun and Associates couldn't. Which is, Patricia smiled. You. I spent the next 2 weeks building a pitch that was part strategy, part love letter. I didn't just outline services and pricing. I showed them I still remembered everything about their company. Their expansion goals, their pain points, the specific language their CEO used in quarterly calls. I built a presentation that said, I know you, and I never stop caring about your success. Sarah helped me rehearse, sat on the couch listening to me run through slides, offering feedback on pacing and emphasis. This is really good, she said after the 3rd run-through. They're going to say yes. Maybe. Not maybe. Definitely. I wanted to believe her. But more than that, I wanted to prove to myself that the work mattered. That relationships built on trust and competence couldn't be replaced by bloodlines and titles. The pitch meeting was at Quinn's headquarters, a glass and steel building 30 miles outside the city. I drove there alone, arrived 20 minutes early, and sat in my car reviewing notes I'd already memorized. At 9:58 a.m., I walked into their conference room. Their CEO, David Quinn, was already there. So was their COO and head of procurement. David stood when I entered, extended his hand with a smile that looked genuinely warm. Daniel, it's good to see you. You too, David. I was sorry to hear you left Chun and Associates. But when Patricia told me you joined Meridian, I thought, well, maybe this is an opportunity. I hope so. We sat, and I launched into the presentation. 30 minutes. 15 slides. Every word calibrated to show them I still understood their business better than anyone else. When I finished, David sat back and looked at his team. Questions? He asked them. The COO shook her head. I think Daniel's covered everything. The head of procurement nodded. This is exactly what we were hoping for. David turned back to me. We'll need to review the contract details, but I'm going to be honest. I think we're done shopping around. If Meridian's offer matches what you've outlined, we'd like to move forward. I kept my expression professional. I'm glad to hear that. Can I ask you something, though? David's tone shifted slightly. Off the record. Of course. What happened at Chun and Associates? We worked with you for 5 years without a single issue. Then suddenly you're gone, and we're dealing with someone who doesn't know our business and doesn't seem interested in learning it. What changed? I considered how to answer. The diplomatic version. The safe version. They promoted someone internally to run strategic development, I said finally. Someone with less experience, and I felt it was time to move on. David nodded slowly. Their loss. I appreciate that. We shook hands again, and as I walked back to my car, I felt the weight in my chest lift entirely for the first time since that Tuesday morning in September. I'd won, not through politics or family connections or playing games, through the work. Quinn Industries signed with Meridian 3 days later. A 3-year contract worth $2.8 million annually, more than they'd been paying Chun and Associates because they wanted expanded services. Patricia called me into her office the morning the contract finalized. You know what this means, right? She said. That we have a major new client? That you just became the most valuable VP in this company. She slid a folder across her desk. The board voted this morning to approve an early bonus. Consider it a thank you. I opened the folder. The number made me blink. 6 figures. For one successful pitch. Patricia, this is earned, she finished. You delivered exactly what we hired you to do. And from what I'm hearing, Quinn's already talking about expanding the contract next year. I closed the folder carefully, trying to process. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank yourself. She leaned back. You took a risk leaving Chun and Associates without a backup plan. A lot of people wouldn't have had the guts to do that. But you bet on yourself, and it paid off. I thought about Robert's office. About his folder with the counteroffer. About staying in place because it was safe. Yeah, I said. I guess it did. Word travels fast in the consulting world. By the end of the week, everyone knew Quinn had signed with Meridian. And everyone knew why. My phone started ringing with calls from former Chun and Associates clients, all asking variations of the same question. Are you taking on new accounts? I was polite, professional, referred some to other consultants, told others I'd need to check capacity. But 3 of them, accounts I'd personally managed for years, explicitly said they were considering leaving Chun and Associates and wanted to know if Meridian could accommodate them. I forwarded those inquiries to Patricia. She called me an hour later. Did you orchestrate this? No. They reached out to me. 3 accounts. All from your old firm. All in the same week. I know. Daniel. Her voice was careful. I'm not questioning your ethics. But I need to know. Are you actively poaching clients from Chun and Associates? I'm not reaching out to anyone. They're calling me. And if they want to switch, then I'll let you decide whether we have capacity to take them on. She was quiet for a moment. You know this is going to hurt them, she said finally. Losing Quinn was bad. Losing 3 more accounts would be catastrophic. I know. And you're okay with that? I thought about September. About the conference room announcement. About the org chart with Hannah's name in the box. About Robert's voice saying, you're making a mistake. I'm not trying to hurt them, I said quietly. But I'm not going to turn away work because it makes things uncomfortable for my former employer. Patricia made a sound that might have been approval. Fair enough. Send me the details on all 3. We'll evaluate and make a decision by Monday. Meridian took on 2 of the 3 accounts. Both signed within a week, bringing another $9 million in annual revenue to my division. The consulting community noticed. Articles started appearing in industry newsletters. Meridian's aggressive West Coast expansion and Chun and Associates loses ground in strategic markets. One article explicitly mentioned me by name. Former Chun and Associates senior consultant Daniel Morrison has emerged as a key player in Meridian's growth strategy, bringing several high-profile clients with him. Sarah showed me the article over breakfast one Saturday morning. You're famous, she said, half joking. I'm notorious. Is there a difference? I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I wasn't sure how I felt about any of it. I hadn't set out to destroy Chun and Associates. I just set out to build something better. But the result was the same. The call came on a Tuesday in early January. Same unknown number pattern. But this time, I knew before I answered. Daniel, it's Robert. I stopped walking. I'd been on my way to a meeting at Meridian, but suddenly the hallway felt very long and very quiet. Robert, we need to talk. I'm not sure we do. Please, just 10 minutes. Coffee. Tomorrow morning. Anywhere you want. I heard something in his voice I'd never heard before. Desperation. Why? I asked. Because I made a mistake. And I want to fix it. I looked down at my shoes, polished and expensive, bought with my signing bonus from Meridian. I'll meet you, I said finally. But not for coffee. Your office. Tomorrow at 9. A pause. Okay. Thank you. He hung up before I could change my mind. I walked into Chun and Associates at 8:55 a.m. The lobby looked exactly the same. Same marble floors, same reception desk, same bland corporate art on the walls. But it felt different. Smaller, somehow. Or maybe I'd just gotten bigger. Margaret, Robert's assistant, looked up when I approached. Daniel. Her smile was surprised but genuine. It's good to see you. You too, Margaret. He's waiting for you. Go ahead in. I knocked once and opened the door. Robert was standing by his window, looking out at the city. He turned when I entered, and I was struck by how tired he looked, older than I remembered, with lines around his eyes that hadn't been there in September. Daniel, thank you for coming. I closed the door but didn't sit. You said you wanted to talk. I did. I do. He gestured to the chairs. Please sit. I sat. He took the chair across from me instead of going back behind his desk. A deliberate choice, I noted, trying to make this feel less formal. I'll get straight to it, he said. I made a mistake. Promoting Hannah over you was wrong. I see that now. I waited. The board sees it too. We've lost 4 major accounts in 3 months. Morale is at an all-time low. And it's all because he stopped, took a breath. Because I prioritized family over merit. And that's not how you build a sustainable company. No, I agreed. It's not. I want to fix this. I want you to come back. The offer hung between us like something physical. As what? I asked. VP of Strategic Development. The position you should have had from the beginning. We can revert the org chart, put you above Hannah. She'd report to you. What about Hannah? She'd move to a different role, something more suited to her experience level. And what about the narrative you've been spinning? That I left out of pride? That the problems are because my transition documentation was inadequate? His jaw tightened. I'll retract that. Publicly if necessary. Will you? Yes. Why? Because it's the truth. The truth. I leaned back. You didn't care about truth in September. I know. And I'm sorry. The apology landed softly, almost too softly to feel real. What's my compensation? I asked. He pulled out a folder. The same one he'd offered me on my last day, but thicker now. 75% raise from your original salary. Full equity package. VP title effective immediately. And a guaranteed board seat within 2 years. It was a good offer. Better than good. But it wasn't better than what I already had. I appreciate this, I said. I really do. But I'm going to decline. His expression cracked. Daniel, please. I know I hurt you. I know I broke your trust. But this company needs you. I need you. Just think about it. Don't make a decision right now. I already have a job, Robert. One where I don't have to wonder if I'm valued or just convenient. Meridian can't offer you what we can. They offered me exactly what I needed. Respect. Autonomy. Recognition based on work, not politics. I stood, and they didn't make me fight for it. So that's it. You're going to watch this place burn because your ego. My ego. I repeated quietly. That's still what you think this is. He stood too, desperation sharpening into something uglier. You're taking our clients. Actively sabotaging. I'm not taking anything. They're choosing to leave. There's a difference. Because you're poaching them. I'm accepting work that comes to me. If your clients are leaving, it's because you failed to give them a reason to stay. We gave you a reason to stay. No. You gave me an offer after you'd already shown me what you value. That's not the same thing. We stared at each other across 6 years of history and one irreparable mistake. I'm sorry it worked out this way, I said finally. I really am. But I'm not coming back. I turned to go. Sarah won't forgive you for this. I stopped at the door. For what? For destroying her family's company. You think she'll be okay with that? I looked back at him. If your company falls apart, it won't be because of me. It'll be because you built it on a foundation that couldn't hold. I left his office, walked through the lobby, and got in my car. Drove away from Chun and Associates for the second and final time. Sarah was waiting in our driveway when I got home. She must have left work early, must have known somehow that today was significant. I parked and got out. Uncle Robert called me, she said before I could speak. When, 20 minutes ago, he told me you met with him, that he offered you everything, and you said no. I walked past her toward the house. She followed. Did he tell you why he was offering everything? He said you were the best chance to save the company. Did he tell you that his company is failing because he promoted someone incompetent? That clients are leaving in droves because Hannah can't manage relationships? That everything I built is falling apart? She stopped in the kitchen. That's not fair. She's trying. Trying isn't the same as capable. You want the company to fail. Admit it. I set my keys down carefully. I don't want anything for the company. I'm indifferent to it. But I'm not going back to fix Robert's mistake. It's not just his company, Daniel. It's family money. Family legacy. If it goes under, it affects everyone. My aunt, my cousins, people who have nothing to do with what happened to you. That's not my responsibility. How can you say that? How can you just not care? Because I gave 6 years caring. 6 years of excellent work that didn't matter when it counted. And I'm done carrying that weight. She shook her head, eyes bright with anger or tears or both. This isn't you. You're not vindictive. You're not someone who watches other people suffer. I'm not watching anyone suffer. I'm just living my life. By taking their clients. The clients came to me, Sarah? I didn't solicit them. But you took them knowing what it would do. Knowing what? That Robert would have to face consequences for a bad decision? Yes, I knew that. And I'm okay with it. You're destroying him. I'm succeeding. That's not the same thing. She stared at me like I was a stranger. I don't know who you are right now. I'm the same person I've always been. I just stopped pretending I owe your family something they never gave me. They gave you a job. I earned my job. Through work. Through results. And they threw it away for nepotism. She's family. So am I. The words came out louder than I intended. I'm your husband, Sarah. I've been part of this family for 8 years. But the moment it mattered, Robert chose blood over partnership. And you're asking me to forgive that. To go back and pretend it didn't happen. I'm asking you to think about more than yourself. I am thinking about more than myself. I'm thinking about every person who's ever been passed over for someone less qualified because they had the wrong last name. I'm thinking about how many talented people leave companies like Chun and Associates because merit doesn't matter as much as connections. And I'm thinking about building something different. She wiped her eyes. If you don't go back, Uncle Robert might lose everything. And that means my family loses everything. Then they should have treated me like I was part of the family. The words hung between us. You really believe that? She said softly. Yes. Then I don't think we want the same things anymore. My chest went cold. What does that mean? She didn't answer, just picked up her purse from the counter. I'm going to stay with my parents for a few days. I need to think. Sarah, don't. She held up a hand. I can't do this right now. I can't choose between you and them. And I can't watch you be okay with hurting people I love. I'm not trying to hurt anyone. But you're not trying to help either. She walked out. I stood in our kitchen listening to her car start, listening to it pull away. And for the first time since September, I felt the weight in my chest return. Heavier than before. Sarah didn't come home for 3 days. She texted once. Need more time. Please respect that. I did. But I also couldn't stop replaying our fight. Her accusation. You want the company to fail. Did I? I'd spent the past 4 months telling myself I didn't care what happened to Chun and Associates. That I was just focused on my own success. But the truth was more complicated. Because every time I heard about another client leaving them, I felt something. Not quite satisfaction, but close enough to make me uncomfortable. Robert had hurt me, had made me feel worthless despite years of proof otherwise. And watching him scramble to fix the consequences of his own decision felt fair. But was fair the same as right? I spent those 3 days working longer hours, throwing myself into projects at Meridian. Patricia noticed. You okay? She asked on the 3rd day, stopping by my office. Fine. You've been here until 10 p.m. every night this week. Just want to make sure we're ready for the Morrison pitch. She sat in my visitor chair, the good one I'd picked out myself. Daniel, you've already proven yourself here. You don't need to run yourself into the ground. I know. Do you? Because you're acting like someone who's still trying to earn their place. I looked up from my laptop. Maybe I am. Why? I didn't have a good answer. Patricia studied me with the kind of perceptive attention that made her excellent at her job. Let me ask you something, she said finally. Did you leave Chun and Associates because you wanted to prove merit matters? Or because you wanted revenge? The first one. You sure? I thought about it. About Robert's face when I declined his offer. About the satisfaction I'd felt hearing Chun and Associates was struggling. I wanted to prove I was worth more than they gave me credit for, I said slowly. But I also wanted them to regret it. And do they? Yes. Does that feel as good as you thought it would? No. She nodded like I'd confirmed something. Revenge is a shitty motivator, she said. It feels good in the moment, but it doesn't build anything. And you're a builder, Daniel. That's why we hired you. So what do? You decide what story you want to tell about this. Do you want to be the person who left and succeeded? Or the person who left and burned bridges? Can't I be both? Maybe. But only one of those versions lets you sleep at night. She left me alone with that question. On day 4, Sarah came home. I heard her car in the driveway around 6 p.m., heard her keys in the door. She found me in the kitchen making dinner. Pasta? Nothing fancy, something to do with my hands. Hey, she said. Hey. We stood there awkwardly, the weight of our last conversation still hanging between us. "I've been thinking," she said finally, "about what you said, about merit and family and all of it. And, and you're not wrong. What Uncle Robert did wasn't fair. And I should have said that to you weeks ago instead of asking you to just accept it." I set down the spoon I'd been stirring with. "I appreciate that. But I also think," she paused, choosing words carefully, "I think you've turned this into something bigger than it needs to be. You've made it about proving a point instead of just moving forward. Moving forward is what I'm doing. By taking clients from a company that's collapsing, that's not moving forward, Daniel. That's staying stuck in the past. They came to me. I know. But you could have said no. You could have referred them somewhere else. Instead, you took them knowing exactly what it would do to Uncle Robert's company. And that makes me the villain? It makes you human. It makes you someone who was hurt and wanted the person who hurt you to suffer. And I get that. I really do. But it's also destroying my family, and I don't know how to reconcile those two things." I leaned against the counter. "What do you want me to do, Sarah?" "I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe the damage is already done." She looked at me with tired eyes. "I just need to know if you can live with that. Can you?" "I don't know yet." We ate dinner in near silence, both of us carefully avoiding the elephant in the room, which was whether our marriage could survive the fault line that had opened between us. I met with Patricia the next morning and told her everything. The full story, not just the clean professional version, but the messy personal one. Robert, Hannah, Sarah, the clients who'd left Chun and Associates for Meridian. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "That's a lot. I know. And you're wondering if you did the right thing. I'm wondering if success is worth it when it costs you everything else." She was quiet for a long moment. "Can I tell you a story?" she said finally. "Sure. When I was 32, I was a senior consultant at a firm a lot like Chun and Associates. Great at my job, brought in tons of revenue, had client relationships most people spend careers building. And then the CEO, who was my mentor, someone I trusted, passed me over for a promotion and gave it to his son-in-law. Jesus. Right. So I quit. Walked away without a backup plan, just like you did. And within 6 months, I'd started Meridian." "Wait, you founded Meridian?" "Co-founded. With 2 other people who'd left companies that didn't value them. We built this place specifically to be different, to reward actual work instead of connections." I stared at her. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because you needed to figure out your own reasons for leaving, not adopt mine." She leaned forward. "But here's the thing, Daniel, starting Meridian was the best decision of my career. But it also cost me. My marriage ended. I lost friendships with people who thought I was being vindictive by competing with my old firm. I spent years second-guessing whether I'd made the right call." "Did you? Professionally?" "Absolutely. Personally?" She shrugged. "I'm still figuring that out." "That's not reassuring." She smiled. "It's not supposed to be. What I'm saying is, there's no clean answer here. You can be right and still hurt people. You can succeed and still lose things that matter. So what do? You decide what you value most, and you accept the cost of that choice." I thought about her words for the next week. Thought about them during meetings, during client calls, during the quiet evenings when Sarah and I coexisted in our house without really connecting. The truth was, I'd achieved everything I wanted professionally. VP title, excellent compensation, respect based on merit. But I'd lost something too. Not just Sarah's trust, though that was significant, but also the clarity I'd felt in September when I'd resigned. The sense that I was taking a principled stand. Somewhere along the way, principle had turned into satisfaction, and satisfaction had started feeling uncomfortably close to vengeance. I didn't know how to fix that, or if it even could be fixed. On a Thursday afternoon in late January, I got an email from Michael Chong. Subject, you should know. Daniel, Robert stepped down as CEO this morning. Board forced it. Too many lost accounts, too much bad press. They're bringing in an outside consultant to assess whether the company can be salvaged. Hannah resigned 2 days ago. Took a position at her father's real estate firm. I don't know if this matters to you or not, but I thought you'd want to know. Michael. I read it 3 times. Felt something complicated move through my chest. Robert was out. The company I'd helped build for 6 years was in receivership, and I played a role in both. I picked up my phone and called Sarah. She answered on the second ring. Did you hear? I asked. About Uncle Robert? Yes. Mom called an hour ago. How is she? Devastated. How do you think? I'm sorry. Are you? The question was sharp, but not quite hostile. I am, I said. I didn't want it to end like this. Then what did you want? I looked out my window at the city, the same view I'd admired that first day, back when everything still felt like potential. I wanted to matter, I said quietly. I wanted my work to be enough. And when it wasn't, I wanted, I don't know, acknowledgement, fairness. Something other than being invisible. You were never invisible, Daniel. You just felt like you were. Maybe. She sighed. This is complicated. I know. I don't want to fight anymore. I just want to figure out how we move forward. Me too. Then come home tonight. Actually come home. Not just show up and work until midnight. And we'll figure it out. Okay. I hung up and sat at my desk for a long time, thinking about the math. Success minus cost. And whether the equation ever balanced. I went home at 6 p.m. Sarah had cooked, which she rarely did on weeknights, and the table was set like we were having guests. This is nice, I said. I figured we needed a reset. We ate slowly, talking about safe topics at first. Work projects, weekend plans, whether we should finally replace the living room couch. But eventually, the conversation found its way back to the unavoidable. Uncle Robert's meeting with the board tomorrow, Sarah said. They're deciding whether to shut down the company entirely or try to restructure. What do you think they'll do? Honestly, I think they'll shut down. Too much damage, too much debt. Mom says he's devastated. I can imagine. She set down her fork, looked at me directly. Did you ever actually want him to fail? Not just to prove a point. Did you want him to lose everything? I considered lying, saying something diplomatic, but I'd spent enough time being diplomatic. At first, no. I just wanted recognition. But after I left, after he started spinning narratives that made me look like the problem, I trailed off. Yeah, there were moments where I wanted him to regret it. Wanted him to see exactly how much I'd contributed. And now I feel like I proved it. And it doesn't feel as good as I thought it would. She nodded slowly. That's honest at least. I'm sorry, Sarah, for letting this damage us. For making you choose between your family and me. You didn't make me choose. The situation made me choose. And I don't know if that's better or worse. Where does that leave us? She picked up her wine glass, turned it in her hands. I love you, she said, but I also love them. And I don't know how to be married to someone who's okay with my family's company collapsing. I'm not okay with it. But you didn't try to stop it. You didn't say no when their clients called. You didn't turn down meetings that you knew would hurt them. You just let it happen. Because I didn't owe them anything. Maybe not. But you owed me something. You owed me the courtesy of considering how your choices would affect me. She was right. And I'd known it was true for weeks. But I'd ignored it because acknowledging it would mean admitting I'd made mistakes. I'm sorry, I said again. Really sorry. Not for leaving Chun and Associates. That was the right call. But for not thinking about how it would impact you. For letting my anger make decisions instead of my judgment. Thank you for saying that. So where does that leave us? I asked again. She was quiet for a long time. I don't know, she said finally. I think we need to figure out who we are now. Not who we were when things were easy, but who we are when things are hard. I want to figure that out with you. Then we'll try. It wasn't a happy ending, but it was honest. And for the first time in months, I felt like maybe that was enough. Robert's company didn't shut down. Instead, the board restructured, brought in new leadership, downsized significantly, and pivoted to a different market segment. I heard about it through industry channels, not from Sarah or her family. They'd stopped talking to me entirely. Family dinners became Sarah's solo appearances. Holidays were split. Her mother sent birthday cards with only Sarah's name, pointedly excluding mine. I'd become the outsider I'd always worried about being. But I was also free. Free to build something at Meridian without wondering if it would be taken away. Free to succeed on my own terms. And I did succeed. By March, my division had grown to 30 consultants. By June, we brought in $8.3 million in new business. By September, exactly 1 year after I'd resigned, Patricia promoted me to senior vice president with a corner office on the top floor and a compensation package that felt surreal. You've earned it, she said when she handed me the paperwork. 12 months ago, you were a risk. Now you're the reason this division exists. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank yourself. You took a leap, and you landed it. I thought about that phrase a lot. You took a leap, and you landed it. Except I wasn't sure I'd landed. Professionally, yes. But personally, Sarah and I were still together, but barely. We lived in the same house, slept in the same bed, shared the same routines. But the warmth was gone, replaced by a careful politeness that felt like we were roommates instead of partners. We should probably talk, she said one evening in October. We were in the living room, me with my laptop, her with a book she wasn't reading. About what? About this. She gestured at the space between us. We're not happy, Daniel. We're managing. Managing isn't the same as living. I closed my laptop. What do you want to do? I think we should separate. Officially. Not divorce, not yet. But give ourselves space to figure out if this is fixable. I'd known it was coming. Had felt it building for months. But hearing her say it still hurt. If that's what you want. It's not what I want. But I think it's what we need. We sat in silence. I'm sorry, I said. For everything. For not being able to fix this. You can't fix something when you don't believe you did anything wrong. I know I hurt you. Do you? Because you keep apologizing for the impact, but not for the choice. Would you have wanted me to go back to Chun and Associates? To accept being treated like I didn't matter? I wanted you to care that your choices hurt people I love. I did care. But I also can't change what I did. And I wouldn't, even if I could. She nodded like I'd confirmed something. Then yeah, I think we need space. Sarah moved out 2 weeks later. Found an apartment downtown, close to her office. I helped her pack, loaded boxes in her car, said goodbye like we were friends instead of people who'd promised forever. The house felt enormous without her. Every room echoed. I threw myself back into work, took on additional projects, stayed late at the office because going home meant confronting the emptiness. Patricia noticed again. You're doing it again, she said one evening when I was the last one on the floor. Doing what? Running yourself into the ground. I'm just busy. You're avoiding. I looked up from my screen. Sarah and I separated. Shit. Daniel, I'm sorry. When? 3 weeks ago. And you didn't tell anyone? What was there to tell? My marriage fell apart because I chose my career over my family. It's not exactly a novel story. Is that what you think happened? It's what did happen. She sat down in my visitor chair, same way she had months ago. Can I offer some unsolicited advice? Can I stop you? She smiled. No. Here it is. You didn't choose your career over your family. You chose self-respect over someone else's comfort. And those are different things. Sarah doesn't see it that way. Maybe not. But that doesn't make you wrong. It just makes the situation complicated. Complicated doesn't help me sleep at night. Nothing helps with that except time. And therapy, probably. Are you talking to anyone? You mean professionally? Yes. No. You should. This is a lot to carry alone. I thought about that weight in my chest, familiar now, almost comfortable. Yeah, I said. Maybe I should. I started therapy in November. A woman named Dr. Chun, no relation to Robert, thankfully, who specialized in career transitions and relationship stress. Tell me why you're here, she said in our first session. Because I made choices that were right for me professionally but destroyed my marriage, and I don't know how to reconcile those things. Do you regret the choices? No. Then why does it bother you that they had costs? Because I didn't think the cost would be this high. She leaned back in her chair. Every therapist seemed to have the same kind of chair and studied me. Daniel, every choice we make has consequences. And part of being an adult is accepting that we can't have everything. You can't stay in a toxic work environment and maintain your self-respect. You can't prioritize your career and also prioritize someone else's comfort. Life doesn't work that way. So I'm supposed to just accept that I destroyed my marriage? You didn't destroy it alone. Relationships end when both people stop being willing to bridge the gap. Sarah could have chosen to understand your perspective. You could have chosen to accommodate hers. Neither of you did. That's not destruction. That's incompatibility. It was the first time anyone had framed it that way. So we were just incompatible? Maybe. Or maybe the circumstances were incompatible with the relationship you'd built. Either way, beating yourself up about it won't change anything. We talked for an hour about choices and consequences, about whether success was worth it, about how to live with decisions that hurt people you care about. By the end, I didn't feel better, but I felt clearer. December came with snow and holiday parties I didn't want to attend. Meridian threw a year-end celebration at a downtown hotel. Fancy enough to feel significant, casual enough to feel genuine. Patricia pulled me aside during cocktail hour. We need to talk about next year. Okay. The board wants to open 2 new divisions, one on the East Coast, one international. And they want you to choose which one you'd like to lead. I blinked. Either one. Either one. You've proven you can build something from scratch and make it profitable. Now they want to replicate that model. That's a lot. It is. But it's also recognition. You're not just a VP anymore, Daniel. You're becoming a key architect of this company's future. I thought about September 2023, walking out of Chun & Associates with 3 boxes and no plan. Thought about where I was now. I'll think about it, I said. Don't think too long. We need an answer by February. Sarah called me on Christmas Eve. Hey, she said when I answered. Hey, I just wanted to check in. See how you're doing. I'm okay. You? The same. Busy with work, figuring out the apartment. That's good. Silence. Daniel. Yeah. I've been thinking about us. About everything. And I think we made the right call. Separating, I mean. Because trying to hold it together was making us both miserable. Okay. But I also think, she paused. I think maybe we weren't ready for the kind of partnership we try to have, where you're married to someone whose family is that involved in your life. No, I agreed. I don't think we were. I'm sorry I couldn't choose you over them. I'm sorry I put you in that position. More silence. Do you think we'll be friends eventually? She asked. I don't know. Maybe. I hope so. I'd hate to think we just disappear from each other's lives. Me too. We talked for a few more minutes about nothing important, and when we hung up, I felt something release. Not closure, exactly, but acceptance. I chose the East Coast division. It meant relocating to New York, starting over in a new city, building yet another team from scratch. But it also meant distance from Sarah, from her family, from the ghost of Chun & Associates. Patricia was thrilled. You're going to kill it out there, she said when I told her my decision. I hope so. Not hope. No. You've proven it once. Now you're just scaling. I moved to New York in March 2025. Found an apartment in Brooklyn with windows that faced the river and furniture that was entirely my own. No shared history, no compromise. Hired a team of young consultants hungry to prove themselves, people who reminded me of who I'd been 6 years ago. And I built. By summer, the East Coast division was profitable. By fall, we'd landed 3 Fortune 100 clients. By winter, I was being featured in industry publications as one of the fastest rising executives in consulting. The quiet success of Daniel Morrison read one headline. The article talked about my meteoric rise at Meridian, my ability to build relationships that translated into revenue, my reputation for delivering results. It didn't mention Chun & Associates. Didn't mention Robert, or Hannah, or the promotion that never came. That part of the story had been edited out, replaced with a cleaner narrative about talent and timing. But I remembered. And sometimes, late at night when I couldn't sleep, I'd think about that Tuesday morning in September 2023, about the conference room announcement, about the exact weight of the air, and I'd wonder if I'd made the right choices. Not professionally. Professionally, I'd won completely. But personally, whether success was worth it when it cost you your marriage, your place in a family, the version of yourself who believed things should be fair. I didn't have an answer. Maybe there wasn't one. 2 years after I'd resigned from Chun & Associates, I got a LinkedIn message. From Robert. Daniel, I hope this message finds you well. I've been following your career at Meridian, and I wanted to reach out. Not for business, but to say something I should have said 2 years ago. You were right. About merit, about what matters, about how I'd built the company. And I was wrong to prioritize family over competence. I see that now, though it took losing everything to learn it. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that your resignation was the catalyst for a lot of necessary change. Not just at Chun & Associates, which no longer exists, but in how I think about leadership. I'm consulting now, helping other companies avoid the mistakes I made. And I tell them about you. About how I lost one of my best people because I couldn't see past bloodlines. I hope you're happy. Truly. Robert. I read it 3 times. Felt something complicated move through my chest. Not quite satisfaction, not quite vindication. Just tired recognition that people learn when they're ready to learn. And sometimes, that means watching things fall apart first. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I closed my laptop and walked to the window. Brooklyn stretched out below, lights and movement and possibility. Somewhere out there, Sarah was living her own life, building her own career, maybe dating someone new, definitely not thinking about me the way I occasionally still thought about her. Somewhere else, Patricia was running Meridian with the same principles that had attracted me in the first place. And somewhere else still, Robert was trying to make meaning from loss. We were all just people who'd made choices. Some good, some bad, most somewhere in between. And we were living with the consequences. I finally responded to Robert's message 3 days later. Robert, thank you for reaching out. I appreciate the apology, even if it's late. Robert, thank you for reaching out. I appreciate the apology, even if it's late. I don't think either of us was entirely right or entirely wrong. You made a choice based on what you thought the company needed. I made a choice based on what I knew I deserved. Both had costs. I'm glad you're doing work that matters to you now. And I'm glad my leaving taught you something, even if the lesson was expensive. I hope you're doing well. Daniel. I hit send before I could overthink it. His response came within an hour. That's more grace than I deserve. Thank you. For what it's worth, Sarah told me you two are officially divorced now. I'm sorry for whatever role I played in that. I stared at that message. Officially divorced. Sarah hadn't told me yet. Or maybe she had, and I'd missed the paperwork in the shuffle of moving and building and running. Either way, it was done. 7 years together, reduced to a legal filing and a LinkedIn message from her uncle. I closed the app and didn't respond. The divorce papers arrived 2 weeks later. I signed them in my office after everyone had gone home. My signature quick and efficient, like I was approving a contract instead of ending a marriage. My assistant had left a sticky note on them. These came certified mail. Let me know if you need anything. I didn't need anything. Just a pen and 30 seconds. I mailed them back the next morning and didn't think about it again until my phone rang that evening. Sarah. I almost didn't answer. Almost let it go to voicemail because what was left to say? But I picked up anyway. Hey. You signed them. Her voice was quiet, hard to read. Yeah. That was fast. Seemed easier than dragging it out. Silence. I thought you'd want to talk first, she said. Or at least acknowledge it. What's there to acknowledge? We separated a year ago. This is just paperwork. It's not just paperwork, Daniel. It's the end of us. We ended a long time before the paperwork, Sarah. She made a sound that might have been agreement or grief. I know. I don't know. I thought you'd have more to say. I looked out my office window at the Manhattan skyline, jagged and bright and impersonal. What do you want me to say? That it mattered. That we mattered. Of course we mattered. But that doesn't change anything. No, she agreed. I guess it doesn't. We were quiet for a long moment. Are you happy? She asked finally. The question caught me off guard. I'm successful. That's not what I asked. I thought about it. Really thought about it. My corner office, my 7-figure compensation, my profile in industry magazines. The apartment I came home to alone. The relationships I didn't have time to build. The version of myself I'd become. Harder, sharper, more focused. I don't know, I said honestly. Are you? I think so. Most days. She paused. I'm seeing someone. It's still new, but it's good. That's good. He's nothing like you. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Neither. Just different. I realized I felt nothing hearing that. No jealousy, no regret. Just mild curiosity about who could be so different from me that it mattered. I'm glad you're doing well, I said. You too. Even if you don't sound happy. Happiness is overrated. Is it? Success is more reliable. She laughed, sad, knowing. That sounds like something you'd say now. But it's not something the Daniel I married would have said. People change. Yeah, she agreed. They do. We said goodbye without drama. Wished each other well with the kind of sincerity that meant we'd probably never speak again. And when I hung up, I sat in my office looking at the signed divorce papers and wondered if Dr. Chun was right. If every choice had a cost. And if I'd simply paid mine. 3 years after I'd resigned from Chun and Associates, I was invited to speak at a business leadership conference in Chicago. The invitation came from an organization I'd never heard of, something corporate about executive development and strategic thinking. Patricia encouraged me to accept. You're becoming a name in the industry, she said. Might as well own it. So I said yes. Flew to Chicago on a Thursday, checked into a hotel downtown, and showed up at the conference center Friday morning to give a keynote on building value through merit-based leadership. The irony wasn't lost on me. I stood backstage in a suit that cost more than my first month's rent out of college, waiting for my introduction, listening to the moderator read my bio. Daniel Morrison is Senior Vice President of Strategic Markets at Meridian Consulting Group, where he's built 2 divisions from the ground up and generated over $45 million in revenue in just 3 years. Previously, he spent 6 years at Chun & Associates, where he managed key strategic accounts and led major territory expansions. He's here today to talk about the principles that drive sustainable success. The audience applauded politely. I walked on stage. The lights were bright enough that I couldn't see faces, just shapes and seats. Maybe 300 people, all here to learn something that would help them climb their own ladders. Thank you for that introduction, I began. Though I have to say, bios always make careers sound more linear than they actually are. They leave out the messy parts, the failures, the moments when you're not sure if you made the right call. A few knowing laughs from the audience. 3 years ago, I resigned from a company where I'd worked for 6 years. I'd brought in millions in revenue, built entire departments, mentored dozens of colleagues, and I was passed over for a promotion in favor of someone with 3 months of experience. I paused, let that sink in. The person who got promoted was the CEO's niece. More laughs, but uncomfortable ones. So I resigned, walked away without a backup plan, without knowing what came next. Just knowing that I couldn't stay somewhere that valued bloodlines over contribution. I clicked to the next slide, a simple graph showing Meridian's revenue growth since I joined. This is what happened after. I found a company that shared my values, that believed merit should matter more than connections. And I built something that proved, at least to me, that doing excellent work actually does count for something. Applause. But here's the thing nobody tells you about taking a principled stand. It costs you. The room went quieter. I lost my marriage over this decision. Lost relationships with people I cared about. Spent 2 years second-guessing whether I'd made the right choice or just an expensive mistake driven by ego. I clicked to the next slide, blank except for a single question. Was it worth it? I still don't know the answer to that question. Professionally? Absolutely. I'm successful in ways I never imagined when I was 24 and walking into my first corporate job. But personally, I shook my head. Success doesn't keep you warm at night. It doesn't show up to family dinners or care when you're sick. It doesn't love you back. Someone in the audience coughed. The silence felt heavy. So here's what I've learned about building value through merit-based leadership. Yes, it matters. Yes, it's worth fighting for. Yes, companies that reward actual work instead of nepotism are better places to build careers. I paused. But also, be honest with yourself about the trade-offs. Because every choice you make closes doors even as it opens others. And the doors you close might be ones you wish you'd kept open. I talked for another 20 minutes about strategy, about team building, about how to recognize when you're in a system that won't reward your work. But I kept coming back to that central question. Was it worth it? After the keynote, there was a reception. Networking, business cards, people who wanted advice or connections, or just to tell me their own stories about nepotism and frustration. I was good at this now. The professional charm, the active listening, the exchange of contact information that would probably never turn into anything real. But then someone approached who made me stop mid-sentence. Jennifer, from Chun & Associates. She looked different. Shorter hair, more confident posture, but unmistakably her. Daniel Morrison, she said with a smile. Still making people uncomfortable with radical honesty, I see. Jennifer, what are you? I work in Chicago now. Left Chun & Associates about 6 months after you did. Saw you were speaking and thought I'd come see if you'd mellowed. Have I? Not even a little. That was a great talk. Even the part where I admitted I don't know if it was worth it. Especially that part. She gestured to a quieter corner. Can we catch up? I've been dying to know how the story ended. We found seats away from the main crowd. So, she said. Meridian. Senior VP. Very impressive. Thanks. What are you doing now? Running strategy for a mid-sized tech company. Nothing as glamorous as your setup, but it's good. I report to a CEO who actually values input instead of just wanting yes men. That's huge. It is. And I have you to thank for it. Me. Watching you leave gave me permission to think about leaving too. To realize that loyalty to a place that doesn't value you is just another form of self-betrayal. I never thought about it that way. What happened to Chun & Associates? I asked. She grimaced. It limped along for about a year after you left. Robert tried to restructure, brought in consultants, the whole 9 yards. But once the reputation damage was done, clients kept leaving. They shut down operations about 18 months ago. Completely. Robert's retired now. Lives in Florida, from what I heard. Henna's working for her dad's company, doing marketing or something. I absorbed that. Chun and Associates, gone. The place where I'd spent 6 years building something that no longer existed. How do you feel about it? Jennifer asked. Honestly, I don't know. It's strange. Like watching a building you used to work and get demolished. You know it's just a structure, but it still meant something. Did you ever regret leaving? No, never. But I do regret how it affected Sarah. You two divorced? Yeah, about a year ago now. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was probably inevitable. We wanted different things, valued different things. The Chun and Associates situation just made it obvious. Jennifer studied me with that same perceptive look she'd had 3 years ago. Can I ask you something? And you can tell me to fuck off if you want. Sure. Do you think you'd do it differently if you could go back? I thought about September 2023. About the conference room, the org chart, the weight in my chest. No, I said finally. I'd still resign. But maybe I'd handle the after differently. Be more thoughtful about which clients I took on. Try harder to keep Sarah out of the crossfire. But you wouldn't stay. No, never. She nodded like I'd confirmed something. Good. Because that job was killing you. I could see it even before Hannah got promoted. You were running yourself into the ground, trying to prove you belonged. Was it that obvious? To people who were paying attention? Yeah. We talked for another hour, about careers and choices, about the industry and where consulting was headed, about whether any of it actually mattered in the grand scheme. And when we said goodbye and exchanged numbers with promises to keep in touch that we'd probably break, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not happiness exactly, but something close. Maybe acceptance. 6 months after the Chicago conference, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject: advice from someone who's been there. Mr. Morrison, my name is Jessica Park, and I'm a senior consultant at Whitman & Associates. I've been here for 4 years, consistently exceed performance metrics, and have strong client relationships. Yesterday, they promoted someone with 8 months of experience to manage my division. She's the CFO's daughter. I saw your keynote from Chicago online. Someone posted it to YouTube, and it resonated with me. I'm trying to figure out if I should stay and fight for recognition or walk away like you did. If you have time, I'd appreciate any guidance you could offer. Best, Jessica. I read it twice. Thought about how to respond. Thought about whether I even should respond, if my story was the right template for someone else's decision. But I wrote back anyway. Jessica, thank you for reaching out. I'm sorry you're dealing with this. It's incredibly frustrating to have your work dismissed in favor of connections. Here's the only advice I can offer. Don't make the decision I made unless you're willing to accept all the consequences. I walked away from Chun and Associates and built something better professionally. But I also lost my marriage, damaged relationships with people I cared about, and spent years questioning whether success was worth the cost. I still don't have a clean answer. What I do know is this. You can't control whether other people recognize your value. You can only control whether you stay in situations that diminish it. If you leave, make sure it's because you're moving towards something better, not just running away from something painful. And if you stay, make sure it's because you see a real path forward, not because you're hoping things will magically become fair. Either way, trust your judgment. You know your situation better than I ever could. Good luck. Daniel. I hit send and went back to work. But her email stayed with me for days. Because I realized that somewhere along the way, I'd become the kind of person other people asked for advice about career decisions. The kind of person who was seen as having figured something out. And the truth was, I hadn't figured anything out. I'd just made choices and lived with them. Sometimes that's all anyone can do. For years after resigning from Chun and Associates, I was in San Francisco for a client meeting. Finished early, had a free afternoon, decided to walk around the city instead of going back to my hotel. I ended up in a coffee shop in the financial district. One of those places with exposed brick and industrial lighting that could have been in Brooklyn or Austin or anywhere corporate professionals gather to feel artisanal. And I saw him, Robert, sitting alone at a corner table with a laptop and reading glasses that made him look older than I remembered. For a moment, I considered leaving before he noticed me. But he looked up, and our eyes met. Recognition. Surprise. He closed his laptop. I walked over. Robert. Daniel. He stood, extended his hand. I shook it. This is unexpected. I was just in the area, saw you, and thought I'd say hello. Please sit. I did. We looked at each other across 4 years, and one failed company, and all the history we'd never fully addressed. You look good, he said finally. Success suits you. Thanks. You look good too. He smiled, tired, but genuine. I look retired. There's a difference. Retirement treating you well. It's an adjustment. 40 years of building something, then watching it fall apart, then figuring out who you are when you're not a CEO anymore. He shrugged. Some days are better than others. I heard about the company. I'm sorry. Are you? The question wasn't hostile. Just curious. Yes, I said. I didn't want it to end that way. But you knew it might. When you left, when you took the clients, you knew the risks. I knew a risk. I didn't know it would be fatal. He nodded slowly. Can I tell you something? He asked. Sure. You were right. About everything. Merit should matter more than bloodlines. And I destroyed something valuable because I couldn't see past family politics. I know. Do you also know that watching it fall apart taught me more about leadership than building it ever did? I didn't have a response to that. I consult now, he continued. Help other CEOs avoid the mistakes I made. And I tell them about you. About how I lost my best employee because I was too proud to admit that family loyalty and good business decisions aren't always the same thing. Does it help? Telling the story? Sometimes. Other times I think I'm just confessing to strangers because the people it actually hurt won't talk to me anymore. Sarah doesn't talk to you? We're cordial. Birthday cards, occasional holidays. But it's not the same. She blames me for your divorce, and she's not entirely wrong. I sat with that. For what it's worth, I said, the divorce wasn't just about you. Sarah and I wanted different things. The Chun and Associates situation just made it obvious. That's generous of you to say. It's honest. We drank our coffee in silence for a moment. Can I ask you something? Robert said finally. Sure. Was it worth it? All of it. The career success, the recognition, proving your point. Was it worth what you lost? I'd been asked that question a dozen times since my Chicago keynote. And I still didn't have a clean answer. Some days yes, some days no, I said. I'm proud of what I've built, but I'm also aware that I paid for it with relationships that mattered. Do you regret it? Regret resigning? No. Regret how it affected other people? Yes. He nodded like that made sense. I regret how I handled it, he said. Not just with you, with everyone. I built a company on relationships, then sacrificed those relationships for family loyalty. And in the end, I lost both. What would you have done differently? He thought about it. I would have promoted you. Given Hannah a different role, one suited to her actual experience. And I would have had the hard conversation with my family about why merit had to come first. Think they would have understood? Probably not. But at least the company would still exist. We finished our coffee. I should go, I said, standing. It was good seeing you, Robert. Really? You too. He stood, shook my hand again. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're doing well. You deserved better than what I gave you. Thank you. I walked toward the door, then stopped. Turned back. Robert. Yes. I forgive you. I don't know if that matters to you, but I thought you should know. His expression did something complicated, surprise and relief and sadness all at once. It matters, he said quietly. More than you know. I nodded and left. Walked out into the San Francisco afternoon feeling lighter than I had in years. Not because the story had a happy ending, but because I'd finally let go of needing one. That night, I sat in my hotel room overlooking the bay and opened my laptop. Started writing. Not for a keynote or an article or anything professional. Just for myself. A document titled, What I've Learned. 1. Success is real, but it's not enough. You can be excellent at your job, bring in millions, build departments from scratch, and still be passed over for someone's nephew. That's not a failure of your work. It's a failure of the system. 2. Walking away from a bad situation doesn't make you a quitter. It makes you someone who values themselves enough to demand better. 3. But walking away costs you relationships, stability, the version of yourself who believed fairness was guaranteed. You don't get to walk away clean. 4. Revenge is empty. Watching Chun and Associates collapse didn't make me feel vindicated. It just made me feel sad. Because the people who suffered most weren't the ones who'd wronged me. 5. Marriage requires both people to value the same things. Sarah valued family loyalty. I valued recognition of merit. Neither of us was wrong. We were just incompatible when forced to choose. 6. Forgiveness is possible even when reconciliation isn't. I forgave Robert not because he deserved it, but because carrying anger was exhausting. 7. Every choice closes doors. I chose my career over comfort, and I lost my marriage. That's not tragic, it's just math. 8. Success and happiness are different currencies. I'm successful. I'm not sure I'm happy, but I'm learning to be okay with that. 9. The work matters. Even when it doesn't feel like it matters. Even when you're grinding through projects and wondering if any of it makes a difference. The work matters. Not because it guarantees recognition, but because doing it well is its own form of integrity. 10. There are no clean endings. No moment where everything makes sense and you can definitively say you made the right choices. There's just moving forward and hoping you're building something worth the cost. I read through the list twice, saved the document, and went to bed. 5 years after I'd resigned from Chun and Associates, I was sitting in my Brooklyn apartment on a Sunday morning reading the newspaper, actual physical newspaper, because I'd developed a taste for analog things in a digital world. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello, Daniel? It's Jessica Park. We exchanged emails a few years ago. I'd asked you for advice about leaving my consulting firm. Jessica. Hi. I remember. I hope I'm not bothering you. I got your number from a mutual contact, Patricia Huang. She said it would be okay to call. It's fine. What's going on? I'm calling because I wanted to thank you. For what? For your advice. I left Whitman and Associates 3 years ago, started my own consulting firm, and we just hit $10 million in annual revenue. I sat up straighter. Jessica, that's incredible. It wouldn't have happened if I'd stayed. Your email? The part about moving towards something instead of just running away, that stuck with me. So I didn't just resign. I built something. That's all you. I just wrote an email. Maybe, but it mattered. She paused. I wanted to ask, we're hiring for a senior leadership position, Director of Strategic Growth. And I thought, well, Patricia mentioned you might be considering a change. I hadn't told anyone I was considering anything, but she wasn't wrong. 5 years at Meridian had been good. Great, even. But lately, I'd been feeling that familiar restlessness, the sense that I'd built what I came to build, and now I was just managing instead of creating. I might be open to conversations, I said carefully. Would you be willing to meet? Just exploratory. No pressure. Sure. Why not? We scheduled a call for the following week. And when I hung up, I looked around my apartment. Expensive furniture, city views, all the markers of success. And I thought about what came next. Because that's the thing about choices. They don't end. You make one, live with it, and then eventually you're faced with making another. The weight in my chest from September 2023 was gone now, had been for years, replaced by something lighter. Not quite happiness, but close enough. Contentment, maybe. Or at least acceptance that this was the life I'd built, one choice at a time, each with its own cost, each closing some doors while opening others. And maybe that was enough. Maybe it had to be. I met with Jessica 3 weeks later. Her office was in Boston, smaller than Meridian, younger energy, everyone under 40 and hungry in that way I remembered being. She'd built something impressive, not just profitable, but principled, hired based on talent, promoted based on results, structured bonuses around actual performance instead of tenure. I built the company I wish I'd worked for, she told me as we walked through the office. The kind of place where doing excellent work actually matters. Sounds familiar, I said. She smiled. That was intentional. We talked for 3 hours. About strategy, growth plans, what the director role would entail. About whether I was ready to leave Meridian after 5 successful years. About what I wanted next. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't have a clear answer. Can I be honest? I said finally. Please. I don't know if I want another corporate role. I've spent 12 years building things for other people, Robert, Patricia, now potentially you. And they've been good opportunities. But I'm 42 years old, and I'm starting to wonder if I should build something for myself. Like what? I don't know yet. Maybe consulting independently. Maybe writing about this stuff. Helping other people navigate the choice between staying in toxic situations and walking away. She nodded slowly. That makes sense. And honestly, I think you'd be good at it. You're very gracious about me turning down your job offer before you've even made it. I'm not making an offer, she said with a smile. I'm just exploring what's possible. And what's possible might be that you're meant to do something different than what I need. We parted with a handshake and mutual respect. And on the flight back to New York, I opened my laptop and started writing. Not a list this time. A book, tentatively titled, The Resignation. What I learned about worth, work, and walking away. The first chapter began. I remember the exact weight of the air that Tuesday morning. 1 year later, I was standing on a beach in Maine at 6 in the morning, watching the sun climb over the Atlantic. The book had been published 3 months earlier. It wasn't a bestseller, wasn't meant to be, but it had found its audience. People stuck in jobs that didn't value them. People wondering if walking away made them failures. People trying to figure out if success was worth its cost. I'd gotten hundreds of emails, thank you notes, personal stories, questions about what to do next. I'd started responding to all of them, not with answers, because I didn't have universal answers, but with questions that might help them find their own. The consulting work had followed naturally, not for companies. I was done building divisions for other people, but for individuals. Executive coaching, career transition guidance, helping people figure out what they actually wanted instead of what they thought they should want. It was good work, meaningful work, and it paid enough that I could afford this. A week alone in Maine, no schedule, no obligations, just space to think. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. A text from Sarah. We'd started talking again about 6 months ago. Tentatively at first, then more easily. Not friends, exactly, but not strangers either. Just finished your book. It made me cry. I smiled. Good crying or bad crying? Both. I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry we couldn't figure it out. Me too. But I think we each ended up where we needed to be. Yeah, I think so too. How's the wedding planning? Chaotic. You'd hate it. Probably. But I'm happy for you. Thank you. Really. I pocketed my phone and turned back to the ocean. The sun was fully up now, turning the water gold. I thought about September 2023, about the conference room, the org chart, the resignation letter, about everything that had come after, the success, the loss, the choices that had led me here. And I thought about Jessica's question, was it worth it? Standing on that beach, alone but not lonely, successful but still figuring out happiness, I finally had an answer. It wasn't worth it or not worth it. It just was. A series of choices that had shaped a life. And maybe that was the only honest ending. Not triumph or tragedy. Just recognition that we build our lives one decision at a time. Accepting that each choice comes with costs we can't always predict. And that's okay. That's just being human. I stayed on the beach until the sun was high and bright, then walked back to my rental cottage. Opened my laptop. Started writing the next chapter. Not of the book, that was done. But of the story that kept unfolding. Because that's the thing about endings. They're never really endings. Just pauses before the next beginning. And I was learning to be okay with that too.